I'm happy to find you in that video to explain you 3 steps through which I brought myself last week when I had a difficult moment, and how I dealt with my high sensitivity and my emotions in that situation. So I'm going to give you that concrete example, and I hope this is an inspiration for you to deal with your emotions, to not ignore them or hate them, but move through them. And if you want my support, that's my specialty, and I'm happy to dig deeper with your personal story. So what happened? I was like, as usual, going to work. I go in the shared space, and I had booked the space where I usually do my calls, and there was someone inside. And that person, it was the second time I met her, and I asked her to leave the space because I had booked it and I had an upcoming call, but very innocently. And the person reacted quite aggressively because we had had an exchange a few days before where I had told her already, I've booked the space and I've booked it, so now I need it. And in that moment, how I lived the situation was like I felt it as an aggression, and I felt she was aggressive. Of course, she wasn't happy that I was kind of kicking her out of the space. And for me, it was really like, imagine I'm there happy, innocently, ready for the beginning of the day, and I get really that reaction. I was not prepared for it. And we had a discussion. I didn't think you are reacting. I said, but I had booked it, and what came out is one rule of the shared space was unclear, and she had her interpretation and I had mine. But at that moment, I didn't have yet that perspective. I just this when interactions, you feel them, and just you feel the emotion. And after that, I went away. Then I found another solution, but in the moment after, because I was going to have calls with clients, I was like, okay, let's calm yourself down. What just happened? So the first round of a few minutes, calming myself down, doing some breathing exercises. Then the evening, where I had more time, I really give space to what I felt, which means I cried. I really felt how it hurt me in that moment. And that's very typical for being highly sensitive. It might be something very small. Many people would say, oh, you're too sensitive, don't make up a story. But that's how I felt it in that moment. And it really hurt me. And that's fine. I don't have a problem. You see, how moving from, oh, I have a problem, I feel things too deeply, to, no, that's how I operate. I feel things more deeply than other people. So for me, I was completely able to stay with what I felt, cry, process the emotion in my body. And it took me a bit of time. That happened the day after. I had kind of a trauma response. I was like, oh, if I go back to that space that I've booked and the person is again in there, the stress of, I'm going to be again in that situation, and it's immediate. Your body has the memory and projects it on the future. So then I still went with the feeling of that's fine, that's normal, that's okay that I have that fear of, oh, what will happen when I meet that person again. And I didn't meet her. I went through my day, and it took me time, I think, one day to really process and let the feeling go through me and leave me. But I was never resisting to it or judging it. So you already have a few keys there. Then I went into a second phase, which was, okay, now that I've lived the feeling, I went out of it, let's get some perspective on the situation. Because we might meet each other again. I want to have moved a bit and not stay just in that trauma response. And I tried to think back. I was like, okay, what has happened? So it was the second time we had met where she was quite aggressive. It's maybe the first time we met, something happened that I didn't notice. Maybe myself, I said something that created the reaction after, and I wasn't aware of it. I know that my intention was not to be aggressive, not to be I know my intention, but how a person then receives it might be completely different. So I was open to, maybe she has lived a different experience as I have lived a different experience, and we are both interacting and communicating like parallelly, like at different level with different perspectives. So I brought myself in her shoes and think, okay, maybe that's how she experienced the first time we exchanged. And maybe there can be so many reasons. Maybe she was in a very stressful moment and had something to achieve for work. Maybe like she had her reasons and she also had her feelings, and I can acknowledge them, even though I don't acknowledge the reaction and how she behaved with me. But it helps me to get perspective on the situation, not just see myself as, oh, I'm the victim of this aggression. Because that's often where highly sensitive people who haven't worked with their emotion can get stuck in, oh, I just feel things deeply and everyone is so, like, it's not nice, and really getting stuck in that phase. So getting that perspective helped me to understand or imagine that something else happened for that person. Good. Then I was like, okay, now I want to go one step further, and that's the hardest one. So as you see before, I took my responsibility. Even like I may have said something. We never know how people receive what we say. We know how we receive what they say, but we never know what happens for them, and she has then her own story. And then I went in that, okay, maybe I can also imagine that I was part of that reaction, even though it was not my intention. And then I moved in the third phase, which is the most challenging one. Which is like, okay, Gloria, how do you want to be with that person next time you meet her? How do you want to be with her? Because I saw that emotionally she, at least in that moment, she was really not able to communicate out of maturity. So I can guess and sense that next time we meet, as most people don't work on their emotions, don't know how to deal with them, she probably will be more in an aggressive or in a certain mode, ignoring or something. And then I was like, okay, how do I want to behave in that moment? And I was like, okay, I don't want to play in the same frequency. I don't want to interact on the same vibration, being myself like either aggressive or... I want to act from a space of, okay, kind of, I'm sorry if I created something for you that I probably wasn't aware of and it was not my intention. But I don't want to interact in that way. That's not how I want to be in relationship with people generally. Then like acknowledging, I'm sorry if I created something I wasn't aware of. And for me, it was not a nice experience and I don't want to live that way. You know, like having the maturity, and that's why I say it's a very hard step, like it's a very emotionally mature step to say, I decide to not stay in the same interaction mode with you. I decide to act out of my values, of maybe how I want to be with people, and not otherwise we all just duplicate, replicate, amplify this negative or like difficult emotions, because it's not really like this, lower frequency. So I shared that story to tell you how I go through my emotions and how I've moved from that situation, and now I feel I'm in a space, and I actually met her again and I actually saw this behavior of kind of, and I was fine. And myself, I was like, she can ignore me, she can, like, I am fine. And I don't fear like meeting her again because I know where I stand. So this is an explanation I give you like from my real life, how I deal with emotions and being highly sensitive. This is something that you can use for any kind of interaction. It can be, because that person, I don't know her, but it can be with your partners, with your relationship, with friends. If you feel that was helpful, please let me know in comment. If you have strategies, if you want to share with others, I'm more than happy to hear them. It will help others too. And if you want to know, because I've given you like the steps, but the how, like you can learn about it, and you can learn about it with me. I'm looking forward to meeting you. Bye.